Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pastor Keith. Hi, Pastor Keith.
Hi.
So today we have an interesting question that came in. The people who are asking, they're wondering is it okay for a Christian to participate in things like ancestor worship or ancestor veneration? In the Korean culture context, it's usually called chesa, and I know Chinese and Japanese and other East Asian cultures do this as well. And I guess they're wondering what your thoughts on that were.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, but it's very pertinent question. Um, in the scripture, Paul is dealing with similar issue. That is, the Corinthians. The Corinthians asked whether it's okay to purchase the meat from the market, which was offered to the idols in the temple. They had a practice like that. The fertility religion, mystery religion. They sacrifice the animal, and they cannot consume everything there. So what they do is they just put it out in the market, and this quite a bit of amount of meat come out. And in the absence of butcher shop, that's where people usually purchase. So they asked the question: is it okay, knowing that this came from temple? And Paul answers like, there's no such thing as idol. There's no, none of the false gods. They are not real. They are not real entities. Therefore, don't ask the question and just purchase it. It doesn't make any difference. First Corinthians chapter 8. And 2 chapters later, First Corinthians chapter 10, I think especially 21, he says, however, going into temple and eating in the idol temple, the food, they also provide the food already prepared in the temple. So they're making income both way. They're either cooking the meal after the sacrifice or sell the meat out in the market. He said, don't do that. The reason is, he says, there's no such thing as an idol, but actually it's the demons who are attaching itself to receive, honor and veneration. Now, so he says, you cannot share in the table of the Lord and also with the table of the demons. That's 10:21, 1 Corinthians. Now, so therefore, when we're talking about this ancestor worship and veneration, we need to go back how it began as a Taoism, and is reinforced by veneration of ancestor by Confucius teaching as well. But it went on for a very long time, and it is about not only veneration of ancestors or all that, but it is actually a spiritual world that ancestors will somehow protect them and keep the unity of the family going, if not outright, prosperity type of things. So it is a spiritual thing, and so some of those people who are doing it, they package it as, well, you're just showing respect to your parents or whatever else. But the root of that is actually worshiping the spirit that is in their the ancestors. What that means in Christian lingo is demons that were in the parents, the ancestors' life. We are venerating those demons to provide protection and whatever else. So it is, in the scripture is scripture forbids it in a very strong way. So I'll say no, you cannot be part of that. However, you should show respect to the people who are doing that, and say, because that's their understanding of it. But spiritually, Christians are not to mix our allegiance, or we should never worship demons, which is just like Paul says, it attaches itself to the idols. This idea of ancestor veneration is actually the demons who are receiving all that worship and all that. So as Christians, we should never do that. However, you need wisdom to show respect to those people and their tradition, but we should not be part of it. You should explain it in very clever way to be not to be part of it. And the one of the questioner asked is her boyfriend's family thing, or the more. And this is general just advice. Don't do familiar things with people who are not married yet. You don't know how it's gonna work out. So do not cross that kind of line. Do not blur that kind of thing. So I don't even recommend going to trip with your, boyfriend, girlfriend's family and things like that. Wait. There's plenty of time afterwards. When you cross that kind of line, when you're actually in marriage situation and all that, you're just taking the air out of it. And all that it should be focused in that family as a unit. You are already using that pleasure or benefit of it before. And therefore, you're taking the real joy and all that out of that, your real experience. So you are replacing with something that is a copy, not real. And that seeps into all other parts of life. The premarital sex is another thing. And, all that, you just have a clear boundary in things. I'm not saying, be inflexible and rigid and self-righteous. That's not what I'm talking about. But contain yourself, discipline yourself, and staying within the boundaries. That's going to afford you more happiness, more satisfaction, long run, right? And do not blur and mix in and go into things like that, especially when you're talking about spiritual exercise, whatever you call it. It's just respect of your ancestor. Whatever you call it, in reality, is a spiritual exercise. And this family has nothing to do with you, legally or theologically, nothing to do with you, and you should not be part of that.
I see. Well, we got a little bonus there, premarital wisdom.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you, Pastor Keith, for teaching us, to live our faith without compromise, but with wisdom, especially dealing with these things like ancestor worship. And hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and please join us every single week for another episode of Ask Pastor Keith.